Thanks for being here, and welcome. So recently I will have presented a video with a picture that I titled "The Greatest Photo in the World," or something like that. And it wasn't really that great of a photo, but it depicted what I believed was brick turning to mud. And even more importantly than brick turning to mud, and this is not it by the way, it depicted structures turning to mud, which I think is more interesting. But first we have to reverse engineer what brick can become, or any block for that matter, anything but a mud brick. And here today in the comments somebody shared this with me. And this is the Huaca del Sol, forgive me. This is in Peru. I love Peru, I think I've said it before. I love the people, the music, the region. And here somebody shared this with me. And this is the new greatest photo in the world. No doubt. This is just a little corner of it. Let's see what they say about this. The Huaca del Sol is an adobe brick temple. So here we go. What is adobe? They tell us it's shitty mud with grass added to it. Come on. If you're still at the mud and grass phase of your development, you're not building a temple like this. And let's look at the condition of this thing. Here we go. Just a little search on YouTube. Nobody cares. And yet so fascinating. Why don't they care? Because they've been told it's made of shitty mud and grass. Of course nobody cares. How unimpressive with such an explanation. Here again we can see the corner that we were just looking at. And these are levels. You're not holding levels up with mud. And I don't know if you remarked the comments in my last video about my shitty concrete job and not using rebar. And yes, I didn't use rebar, and nor did these people, we are told. Just mud and grass. And truly the old world, even before I started doing this research, has always been my inspiration. I would always tell myself things like, well, they didn't have rebar in the 1800s. I'll do this without rebar. And it's just a place to park my truck while I change my oil. For the last 15 years, I've been laying on the dirt on my back when I change my oil, at least twice a year. So I really don't care if that concrete cracks. And really, it's no big deal if it cracks and it's on the ground, if it's just something like a car park. But it does matter. If you're building several stories up, as we see here, you are going to need rebar, and you are going to need concrete, or something more than mud and grass. And the more closely we investigate it, it appears that the mud is superficial, or just on the outside, flowing down. Again, we're in Peru, the Huaca del Sol. Huaca must mean temple, temple of the sun, just guessing. And this isn't just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 layers thick. It appears to be 50 courses thick. I don't know. Do we have access to the inside? And this would not be allowed to stand in North America. But out here in Peru, it's still the Wild West, similar to Pakistan, and we can find great evidence. Now again, I've mentioned that the whole Southwest, I believe, is this, waiting to be excavated. The historical narrative is a powerful tool, with such a grip on the people by an early childhood age. Most people don't even want to explore. Most people don't think there's anything left to explore. So we're told this was built by the Moche civilization in between the fine years of 100 to 700 AD. But the issue is the subject of some debate. Oh, you don't say. Many scholars contend that the Moche were not politically organized. Are you kidding me? 50 courses thick and you have no organization? Again, wanting to portray this as a primitive people. And even if these were mud bricks, which I don't believe they are, if anyone's in Peru, go grab a brick and see if there's any grass in it. Even if they were mud bricks, absolutely mind-blowing. I don't know anybody who could make a structure this big out of mud. Even a high-tech engineering firm or construction outfit would have no idea where to begin to make a structure this size out of mud. But that's just stupid. We know it's not made out of mud. We know mud doesn't hold this form for almost 2,000 years. No, their narrative is BS, and especially when we see things like this around. We know that this has something to do with everything else, and for some reason, these parts have been rocked, and for some reason, the American Southwest has been extra rocked. But why is it important to look for pockets of preservation like this? It's so that we can understand the non-preserved parts, and then make sense of the rest of the realm around us. If we can understand that this brick is artificial, of course. Now these levels, of course, are artificial. Now if we're just strolling around in the Southwest and we see something like this, we raise an eyebrow. We don't just wander around like the tourists. We say, okay, I see a couple levels here. Level, level. But it wouldn't make any sense if you didn't have this right next to it. This helps us understand this. And there's a lot more of this throughout the realm. And who are these characters? We loosely use the term Tartaria. We use this term within our community, but this doesn't make any sense to anybody else who hasn't watched any videos on the subject before. Who were these people? In my opinion, these were all the characters spoken about in the Bible. And not just the Bible, the Indian texts. All the oldest books of all people have the story. The difference is we've been taught that these people are primitive and that they were wearing robes and sandals and half naked. That's the disconnect. All of this was so glorious. In fact, in my last video in Pakistan, that fort, which could have been called a temple, this one in particular that we're looking at is called a temple. It could have been called a fort, sometimes a castle. But my point is that fort in Pakistan was also referred to as an ark, and other similar structures, while doing a Google search, revealed many that were called arks. And what is an ark? Do we really know? We've been taught that it's a boat, a vessel at best. And again, these stories are telling us everything. They've just been misinterpreted. Just as this structure has been misinterpreted, we've been led to believe that it is made of mud, as opposed to this mud look is the byproduct of its destruction. And so these old characters in the Bible, I believe they were super advanced. Similar to the poem of the 5 ages of man. The first age of man is the most glorious. Their buildings, their intelligence, their stature, everything more advanced and slowly degrades. And we're in the last age of man. Even the Native Americans confirm this, saying that the world has been wiped out 5 times before. There's our 5 ages. We are the last, the weakest, the most feeble, and least intelligent. Unless, of course, you're watching this video. Very sad to think that we are the few that would understand this, while the rest of the populace goes on thinking that we're the peak of civilization. Hard to justify now as everything falls apart. Other major ruins include the Huaca del Luna, a better preserved but smaller temple. Okay, so better preserved. That's good news. By 450 AD, they tell us, 8 different stages of construction had been completed. The technique was additive. New layers of brick were laid directly on top of the old. Hence, large quantities of bricks were required for the construction. Archaeologists estimate over 130 million bricks were used, and this was the largest pre-Columbian adobe structure built in America that nobody's ever heard of. The number of different marks on the bricks suggests that over 100 different communities contributed bricks to the construction of the Huacas. If you remember, they were telling us that they were disorganized. Many of the scholars contend that the Moche were not politically organized. And yet here, in the same breath, they're telling us that over 100 different communities contributed bricks. So they have to tell us this. They have to explain how a primitive people could acquire 130 million bricks. So archaeologists agree that there is 130 million bricks. And whether they're grass bricks and mud, they still can't explain how a people in this region could ever build this brick house. So they tell us hundreds of communities just carted bricks in via donkey Oh yes, donkey. Not even getting a horse over here, pre-Columbus, if we're following the narrative. And I'm not dissing on the donkey. They're very cute. The Huaca del Sol was composed of 4 main levels. The structure was expanded and rebuilt by different rulers over the course of time. It's believed to have originally been 50 meters high and about 340, give or take, at the base. Located at the center of the Moche capital city, the temple appears to have been used for ritual. There you go. Savage, barbarian bastards is what they want to portray. Ceremonial activities and a royal residence were also some of the uses. Archaeologists can attest to these functions. Oh, thank you, archaeologists. I was getting a little inquisitive there for a moment. And then they tell us that during the Spanish occupation in Peru in the 17th century, the colonists redirected the waters of the Moche River to run past the base of the temple to facilitate the looting of gold artifacts. So there we go. Gold artifacts, just partial truths. So there are mud and grass building people, but then they have gold artifacts. That makes sense. They're building 3-story buildings, and this doesn't look like 3 stories. This looks a lot bigger than 3 stories. Here we can see a fine piece of construction in the foreground. Exactly how I build. But no, over 1,000 years ago we're told they needed to build something that big in the background for rituals. And they were able to organize hundreds of other tribes to pitch in. The remaining structure stands at a height of 41 meters, or 135 feet. So we've lost about 10 meters off the top. Even here in Peru, perhaps a little bit of covering up going on too. Not as funded as the US, but no doubt other nations would step in and provide the funds and the political pressure needed to do their bidding if it was too extraordinary. God, right now this looks like a massive sphinx. Head missing. Maybe that was the extra 10 meters. In total, approximately 2/3 of the structure has been lost to erosion and such looting. And here we can just see the wasteland. Again, in my past video, what causes deserts? Certainly after 200 years, a land should recover from any great cataclysm, be it flood or whatever. Name that cataclysm. Indicating to me that this is pretty recent. And when we examine it and see the mud flowing off of the structure, it's as if these deserts are just pools of the material. Could 10 meters have just melted off of it and flowed out all around whatever this structure was before, this one here, buried? And here's the town in Peru. And again, we see how everything is green, where agriculture has come in. Throw a little water on the ground and things begin to grow. But we see these great wastelands, and this is where this particular site is located, right down here. Just looking like almost nothing. And even from above, the eye is drawn to many other things. Not this temple of the sun. Looks like there's a ramada right at the base. 5-star reviews. And some kind of exotic food. I'm not that familiar with Peruvian food. I have eaten a pupusa, tasty little bread and cheese treat. And here again we'll drop the man on this corner this time. And here we are. So I think I'll just leave this segment there. Let me know your thoughts. That's all that's left. This is a group effort. I don't ever want to tell you I know, because I don't. Everything is on the table, even their stories. Okay, so as usual, I don't know anything. I really don't. I can only share my thoughts and my experiences. Sometimes I wonder if it's even appropriate to share my experiences on this channel, but I do. Lately I've been preparing for winter. I've had a taste of it already. It's usually when I start preparing. Here's the Spokane courthouse, county courthouse, and this is the screensaver on my phone. It has been for months. When I grab my phone and activate it, this pops up. And we can see a home, nice little home, a home that I would enjoy living in. In the foreground, we see a little horse and wagon on the right side, trotting down the dirt road. We see a wood picket fence along the dirt road. And then this castle. If I had angelic sounds, I would insert them right now. This castle. Show anybody this picture and ask them what this is. Unless you knew, this does not seem like a courthouse. I had originally received the tip that this was a high school, and until I sat down and researched it, I thought it was. And it was not shocking to me. I mean, at first, when I first started doing this research, but at this point, not shocking, nothing shocking. We've seen hundreds of high schools that look like this. Here I've saved one. This is the old Spokane High School, of course. Very bold, and of course very important to build a high school like this in a very early time period. Just very important to build everything like this. And of course we've looked at Stadium High School. Stadium Castle High School. The original Stadium High School in Tacoma was damaged by fire in 1898. They used it for storage, and it was reconstructed as a school in 1906. I don't know about your high school, but mine wasn't even close to this. Just one story, and it was very box-like. And this baby, having this old stadium, which was made smaller, it actually used to fit in this whole bowl, and it simply wouldn't be shocking to me to see any building that looks like a castle today, and for it to be anything. A high school, an asylum, a courthouse, whatever, a church. But in this case, it was a courthouse. Here we can see a station in Spokane. It looks so similar. Station. It actually looks more like a station than a courthouse. What need for this top half in this early horse and buggy time period. Sorry about the mini fridge. The freezer part is just packed with ice. I need to thaw it. You know how the ice builds up? Sorry. I should be serious and just focus on history. No, I'm just kidding. Fuck history. Really. I really wish I could share what I'm doing in these times. I've built a life that seems... I mean to say it's more important to have a lifestyle that costs very little than to make a bunch of money. And that's just my opinion and the way that I've gone about life. While everybody was focused on making money, beginning in my early 20s, I started working out a plan on how to live for almost nothing. That was my goal, at least. It's almost impossible. We still have things we'll have to pay and we'll want to pay for. And it's fine to try to make more money, but if you're just going to piss it away and pay for bills and housing, utilities, I don't think it's worth it. I could continue living my lifestyle working at a gas station. My land and house are paid for. The house cost about $15,000 to build. I made a bunch of videos on it, but YouTube deleted that channel for some strange reason. It was something I used to share with my Patreons while I was building up the catalog. And 20 years ago, my idea seemed stupid to my friends and family, and I was discouraged from seeking another way of life. And these days, I don't think it seems so crazy. My bills are my phone, $100, $30 for water every month. My power is free, solar. I pay about $300 a year for propane for part of my heat and cooking. The other part of my heat comes from my wood-burning stove. And the last time I tallied up my monthly expenses, they were about $800 a month. I wasn't aware until recently that the mortgage companies were giving out stupid loans once again, and we're about to see that bubble burst. They were giving out loans that had a variable interest that would rise in 2 years, and now shit is hitting the fan. Everybody's mortgage payments that took these stupid kind of loans are going to increase even double in some cases. And enough ranting. The courthouse was built in 1895. I do encourage you to simplify your life as much as possible. In the French Renaissance Revival chateauesque style, these bastards, and added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1974. Oh, I just noticed that it was a nice building in 1974. A stupid design contest prior to construction was won by this bullshit man, Willis Ritchie, an architect whose career began in Ohio and Kansas, but reached maturity in Seattle and later Spokane. It's like these people were just waiting around for contests to get work, and they all built in the same style. The chateauesque. The castle. A chateau in French is a castle. The castle-esque style. Oh, how creative. How creative you are, Willis, from Ohio. You won a contest. Did everyone submit castles? It's located by the river in downtown Spokane in the West Central neighborhood. It has 9 stories. Ground was broken in 1893 on land donated. I mean, just trying to mix in this poor with this rich narrative. So poor. Again, the horse and buggy. And we can't even afford land. We need to donate everything. Everything is being donated back then. And then you build a castle on donated land? So unmodest? It's like you give the homeless man a couple bucks and he jumps in a Ferrari and drives away. I mean, what? Did we miss something? No, it was donated by some guy. The project was envisioned to be a way to help Spokane recover from the panic of 1893. There we go. I'm just gonna piss money away to create jobs, either very charitable or communist. The location was controversial. Always. Are you all seeing this repeated narrative? And again, in my last video, it was a little edgy. I was uncertain with that last segment being so recent. But the narrative read so similarly. Donating land, a vision, a stupid vision. Whose vision? That all feels nice and good, but is it realistic? Again, the streets, the horse and wagon, not even a good model. Spokane business community people hope to locate the courthouse in the central business district of the city. Rural communities in Spokane County wanted a more rural location. In 1893, they have a contest. So this guy was chosen, there was a second place, and there was a third place. They gave out $500 for a third place. What for? Well, why not just piss this money away? Construction began in 1894 by this contractor Fotheringham. Anyway, we'll skip down a little bit. And in 1895, the building opened, and the officials moved in. Ah, yes. Ding! A 1-year construction. I could just end the video here, really. Or I could just wad up any notes that I have and walk away. 1 year. Is anyone insulted today? This pretty much sums up my whole channel. I don't need to explain anything until they, who make the claims, shall bear the burden of proof. Not I. Oh, not I. I claim nothing. I open this video telling you I don't know. But when I read this narrative and learn that this was built in 1 year, it is not me who needs to explain anything. This history is complete bullshit. Anyone that would claim that this could be built in a time period with horse and wagon in 1 year is either perfectly deceptive or an absolute fool. And I say that because I don't think anyone watching today would agree that that's possible. So who cares about anything else that they have to say at this point? Here, just a little close-up at the main entrance. Just everything in this frame would be a struggle to complete in a year. Let me just read on. In its early years, the courthouse was the site of multiple hangings and homicide. Of course. Maybe they needed some cases to present in this new courthouse. So just stupid. Now it just gets stupid, like some Louis L'Amour novel. Old West stories, hangings. Again, mixing a primitive with the impossible. Just swallow it all and question nothing. 1 year. And that's pretty much it. That's your explanation, America. But again, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. And why shouldn't they want us to be free? Because we'll stop paying Caesar. Just like my chickens who have begun laying their eggs by the river. For this week, I thank you for being here. I love you all. God bless. And I'll see you soon.